everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless recap for Wednesday, March 11th reveals that Adam Newman will have to revisit some memories he tried to forget. Victor Newman's actions will also leave Nikki Newman reeling. So here's what Y&R fans can expect. At Billy Abbott's, he'll fill Sally Spectra in on the Marina lead regarding Jack Abbott and the plan to investigate it since Phyllis Summers is dragging her feet. At Society, Nikki will grill Phyllis about whatever it is that Victor is leaving her in the dark on. Phyllis will assume Victor wants Nikki in the dark and will remain cagey about the details of their potential deal. Once Diane Jenkins Abbott and Kyle Abbott show up demanding to know if Phyllis has locked in the deal yet, Kyle will ask if she knows where his father is. Nikki will recall her earlier conversation with Tracy Abbott and wonder if Jack's missing. Diane will insist Victor kidnapped Jack and is holding him captive as leverage for Chancellor. Nikki will flip out and push Phyllis to make the deal ASAP. After Nikki vows to get Victor to agree to the terms, Diane will remind her that Jack saved her life and will urge Nikki not to let him down. After Nikki rushes home following the hostage Jack news, Billy will join Diane, Kyle and Phyllis at the restaurant. Once Phyllis faces more backlash, she'll admit Victor changed the terms and now wants everything back, including Chancellor, Newman Media and Newman Enterprises overall. After Billy, Kyle and Diane blast Phyllis for not making the agreement, they'll dash off to try and find Jack at the marina. At the ranch, Nikki will come blowing in and call out while looking for Victor. Once Nikki says the Abbotts told her about Jack and the deal Victor's trying to make with Phyllis, she'll insist Victor will have to deal with her now. At Adam and Chelsea Lawson's place, they'll get a visit from Nick Newman and Sharon Newman. After Sharon and Nick explain the info Sienna Bacall uncovered about Riza being connected to and possibly hiding Matt Clark, Adam will be thrown for a loop. Adam will have a hard time revisiting his past as Spider since he worked hard to shove that part of his life down and leave Vegas behind. Nick and Sharon will understand if this is too difficult for Adam, but he'll insist he wants to help. Although Adam will remember Riza being his handler and guiding him through high-stakes poker games, she wasn't mixed up in drug trafficking back then as far as he knew. Adam will acknowledge that could have changed, but he won't really have any intel to offer. Sharon will recall that Riza's last name was Thompson, so Adam will confirm that was indeed her name. Nick will wonder if Adam can offer an address, but nothing will come to mind for Adam right now. After Nick vows to keep digging, Adam will push Nick to call him if he needs backup. Once Nick and Sharon head to the coffee house, they'll debate whether it was a good idea to drag Adam into this. Nick won't want to undo Adam's positive progress by forcing him to think about a difficult time in his life. Sharon will feel like Adam genuinely wants to help and will suggest that he's going to do what he wants to anyway. Matt will send another creepy text, but Nick will refuse to show it to Sharon since his messages are getting worse. There'll also be some flashbacks of when Sharon first visited Adam in Vegas when he had memory loss. Adam will reflect on how he blocked out the old Adam and all his mistakes. Adam will worry about stirring up that version of himself and will marvel over his past as Spider being linked to this current Matt nightmare. Although Adam will feel like he owes Sharon and Nick to help them, he'll worry about pulling on this thread and dragging them all down into that monster's hell. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Nick and Adam will become a force to be reckoned with once they team up against Matt in Vegas, so stay tuned. The tension hanging over Genoa City felt heavier than ever as the day began to unfold. Each conversation carrying the quiet weight of secrets, suspicions, and dangerous truths waiting to surface. Inside Billy Abbott's home, the atmosphere was thick with urgency as he sat down with Sally Spectra and revealed a lead that could finally bring some clarity to the mystery surrounding Jack Abbott. Billy explained that the marina might hold the answers they had been searching for, a location that suddenly seemed far more important than anyone had realized before. He told Sally about the plan to investigate it further, especially since Phyllis Summers appeared to be dragging her feet instead of moving forward decisively. The situation was beginning to feel like a ticking clock, and Billy's frustration simmered beneath the surface as he tried to piece together what was really happening. Sally listened carefully, sensing that the situation was spiraling into something far more dangerous than a simple business conflict. The idea that Jack might be caught in the middle of something sinister lingered between them, casting a long shadow over everything that followed. Meanwhile, at Society, the elegant restaurant that often served as Genoa City's social battleground, Nikki Newman confronted Phyllis Summers with the intensity of someone who knew she was being kept deliberately in the dark. Nikki's voice carried a sharp edge as she pressed Phyllis for answers, demanding to know exactly what Victor Newman was hiding from her. Phyllis, however, was careful with her words, maintaining a guarded composure that only fueled Nikki's suspicions further. She suggested that Victor likely wanted Nikki unaware of the details, and she clearly had no intention of betraying that confidence just yet. The conversation crackled with tension, each woman measuring the other carefully as the truth hovered just out of reach. The air shifted dramatically when Diane Jenkins Abbott and Kyle Abbott suddenly arrived, their expressions tense and demanding. Diane wasted no time asking whether Phyllis had secured the deal yet, while Kyle, clearly rattled, pressed for a much more personal answer, whether she knew where his father was. The room seemed to freeze for a moment as Nikki reflected on her earlier conversation with Tracy Abbott, the memory rushing back to her with chilling clarity. A sinking feeling formed in her chest as the possibility took shape in her mind that Jack might actually be missing. Diane's reaction came swiftly and explosively as she declared what she believed had happened. She insisted that Victor had kidnapped Jack and was holding him captive as leverage for Chancellor, a claim that sent shockwaves through everyone present. Nikki's composure shattered instantly as panic and fury surged through her, her emotions spiraling into a storm of disbelief and rage. Turning back to Phyllis, she pushed her with renewed urgency, demanding that she finalize the deal immediately if it meant securing Jack's safety. The stakes had suddenly become terrifyingly real, and the room felt suffocating under the pressure of what might be unfolding behind the scenes. But before Nikki rushed off to confront Victor directly, Diane stepped forward with a reminder that carried deep emotional weight. She looked Nikki in the eye and reminded her that Jack had once saved her life, a moment that had forged a bond between them that could not be ignored now. Diane urged Nikki not to let him down, not when Jack might be counting on her to stand up against Victor's ruthless maneuvering. The words struck a chord that Nikki couldn't ignore, and without another moment of hesitation, she hurried out of Society and headed straight for the ranch. Back at the restaurant, the tension refused to settle as Billy soon arrived and joined Diane, Kyle, and Phyllis. The atmosphere quickly turned hostile as the group confronted Phyllis again, their frustration boiling over. Under the pressure of their anger, Phyllis finally admitted something that made the situation even more explosive. Victor had changed the terms of the deal. According to Phyllis, Victor no longer wanted just a portion of what had been discussed before. Instead, he wanted everything returned to him, including Chancellor, Newman Media, and even Newman Enterprises itself. The demand was staggering, an empire-sized ultimatum that left everyone staring at her in disbelief. Billy, Kyle, and Diane immediately erupted with outrage, blasting Phyllis for failing to secure the agreement before Victor escalated his demands. The situation felt like it was slipping dangerously out of control, and there was no longer any time to argue. Determined to take matters into their own hands, the three of them rushed out of Society and headed toward the marina, hoping against hope that they could find Jack before things became even worse. At the Newman Ranch, the storm that had been building finally arrived with full force. Nikki burst through the doors, her voice echoing through the grand halls as she called out for Victor. She moved through the house with a fierce determination, her anger and fear fueling every step. When she finally confronted him, she wasted no time revealing what she had learned. Nikki told Victor that the Abbotts had already informed her about Jack and the deal he was trying to make with Phyllis. Her voice trembled with fury as she made one thing crystal clear. Victor would have to answer to her now. Elsewhere in Genoa City, another storyline was quietly unfolding, one rooted deeply in the past that Adam Newman had worked so hard to bury. At the home he shared with Chelsea Lawson, the evening took an unexpected turn when Nick Newman and Sharon Newman arrived with troubling information. They explained what Sienna Bacall had uncovered, evidence that suggested a woman named Riza might be connected to Matt Clark and could even be hiding him. The revelation caught Adam completely off guard, sending a ripple of unease through him. The name alone was enough to stir memories he had tried desperately to forget. Nick and Sharon could see the tension in his expression and immediately assured him they would understand if revisiting that part of his life was too painful. But Adam refused to walk away from the conversation. Despite the discomfort rising inside him, he insisted that he wanted to help them. Slowly, pieces of the past began to resurface, as Adam recalled that Riza had once been his handler during his time in Las Vegas. She had guided him through high-stakes poker games during the days when he operated under the dangerous persona known as Spider. Back then, as far as Adam knew, she hadn't been involved in drug trafficking or anything like that. Still, he admitted that a lot could have changed since those days, and the uncertainty left him uneasy. When Sharon remembered that Riza's last name had been Thompson, Adam confirmed that detail without hesitation. Unfortunately, when Nick asked if he could recall an address or any other concrete lead, Adam had to admit that nothing specific came to mind. Even so, Nick promised he would continue digging for answers. Adam, determined not to sit on the sidelines, urged Nick to call him if backup was ever needed. Later, after Nick and Sharon left and stopped by the coffee house, the two of them began quietly questioning whether bringing Adam into the situation had been the right decision. Nick worried that dragging him back into those memories could undo the progress Adam had worked so hard to make. Sharon, however, saw something different in Adam's reaction. She believed he genuinely wanted to help, and she pointed out that Adam was the type of person who would pursue the truth whether they involved him or not. Their conversation was interrupted when Matt Clark sent another unsettling message. The text carried the same chilling tone as the others, but this time Nick chose not to show it to Sharon. The messages had been getting darker and more disturbing, and he didn't want her to bear the weight of that fear. As the tension deepened, memories from the past surfaced in flashes. Moments from the time Sharon first visited Adam in Las Vegas when he had been struggling with memory loss. Those moments now felt hauntingly relevant, reminders of the complicated history they all shared. Back at home, Adam found himself alone with his thoughts, reflecting on the man he used to be. He remembered how hard he had worked to block out the old version of himself, the mistakes and darkness that had defined his life as Spider. The thought of revisiting that identity filled him with unease, as if opening a door he had locked for good reason. It amazed him that the dangerous world he once inhabited was now somehow tied to the nightmare Matt Clark had unleashed in the present. Adam knew he owed Nick and Sharon his help, especially given everything they had been through together. But the deeper he thought about it, the more he worried that pulling on this thread might drag all of them into something far worse than they imagined. The fear that haunted him wasn't just about the past, it was about where that path might lead. Adam couldn't shake the feeling that chasing Matt might pull them into a darkness he described as that monster's hell. And yet, despite the danger and uncertainty looming ahead, the stage was already being set for a confrontation that could change everything. As the shadows of Las Vegas stretched closer to Genoa City, it became increasingly clear that when Nick and Adam finally joined forces against Matt Clark, they would become a powerful and unstoppable force. The battle ahead promised danger, reckoning, and the possibility that old ghosts would finally be forced into the light. As night slowly settled over Genoa City, the tension that had been building throughout the day refused to fade. Instead, it thickened like a gathering storm, spreading through every corner of the city as the lives of several families edged closer to a dangerous collision. The desperate search for Jack Abbott was no longer just a rumor whispered in tense conversations. It had become a frightening possibility that carried consequences far beyond a simple family feud. The marina now loomed large in everyone's minds, a silent location that might hold the answers to a mystery none of them were prepared to face. As Billy Abbott, Diane Jenkins Abbott, and Kyle Abbott rushed toward that lead, their thoughts were tangled with fear, anger, and determination. Each of them carried the same desperate hope that they would find Jack before whatever Victor Newman had planned could spiral out of control. Yet beneath that hope lingered an unsettling question none of them dared to say aloud. What if they were already too late? Back at the Newman ranch, the emotional explosion between Nikki Newman and Victor Newman was still unfolding with fierce intensity. Nikki stood before her husband with fire in her eyes, her composure completely shattered by the terrifying possibility that Jack had been taken hostage. She demanded answers with a voice that trembled not only with anger but also with deep betrayal. The thought that Victor might manipulate someone's life so ruthlessly, even Jax, left her reeling in disbelief. Victor, however, remained as imposing and controlled as ever, his silence only fueling Nikki's frustration further. The power dynamic between them had always been complicated, but now it felt like a battlefield where loyalty, love, and morality were all being tested at once. Nikki made it clear that whatever game Victor thought he was playing had gone too far, and this time she would not stand quietly by while he used someone's life as leverage. Meanwhile, across town, the tension surrounding the search for Matt Clark continued to deepen in a far more personal and haunting way. Nick Newman and Sharon Newman sat together at the coffee house, both of them weighed down by the disturbing developments they had uncovered. The messages Matt had been sending were becoming darker and more threatening, each one a reminder that the danger surrounding them was growing more unpredictable by the hour. Nick tried to maintain a calm exterior, but inside he was wrestling with a fierce protective instinct, determined to shield Sharon from the worst of what Matt was saying. The decision to keep the latest message from her wasn't made lightly. It came from a place of deep concern and love. Sharon sensed that something was wrong, but she also trusted Nick's judgment, knowing he wouldn't hide something unless he truly believed it was necessary. Still, the silence between them carried its own weight, a quiet tension that hinted at the frightening road ahead. While Nick and Sharon struggled with the present threat, Adam Newman found himself drifting back into memories he had fought hard to bury. Alone with his thoughts, he reflected on the complicated life he had once lived in Las Vegas, a world filled with high-stakes poker tables, shadowy figures, and dangerous alliances. The name Spider echoed in his mind like a ghost from another lifetime, a reminder of the identity he had worked tirelessly to escape. Back then, survival had meant embracing a darker version of himself, someone capable of navigating a ruthless underground world where trust was rare and betrayal was constant. Riza Thompson had been part of that world, guiding him through it with a cool professionalism that now felt disturbingly relevant again. Adam couldn't shake the uneasy realization that the past he had tried to erase might now be the key to stopping Matt Clark. The deeper Adam allowed those memories to surface, the more conflicted he felt. He wanted to help Nick and Sharon, there was no question about that. Their history together was complicated, but the bonds they shared ran deeper than old rivalries or past mistakes. Yet every step closer to that past felt like walking toward a dangerous edge. Adam understood better than anyone that once certain doors were opened, they couldn't easily be closed again. The man he used to be, the man called Spider, had lived in a world filled with manipulation, risk, and violence. Stirring that part of himself again could unleash something unpredictable, something he wasn't sure he could fully control. Even so, Adam couldn't ignore the growing feeling that fate was pulling him back into that world for a reason. The connection between Matt Clark and the life he once lived was too strong to dismiss as coincidence. Somewhere in the tangled web of old contacts, hidden deals, and forgotten alliances, there might be a thread that could lead them straight to Matt. Adam knew that if he followed that thread, it might not only expose Matt's location, but also reveal truths that none of them were ready to face. The danger of that path hung over him like a dark cloud, but so did the responsibility he felt toward Nick and Sharon. After everything they had endured together, walking away simply wasn't an option. As these separate storms continued to build, one thing was becoming increasingly clear: the battles ahead would not be fought alone. Whether it was the escalating confrontation between the Abbotts and Victor Newman, or the looming threat of Matt Clark hiding somewhere in the shadows of Las Vegas, alliances were beginning to shift. Old grudges were being pushed aside in the face of greater dangers. And in the midst of it all, two brothers who had spent years clashing, Nick Newman and Adam Newman, were slowly moving toward a moment that could redefine their relationship forever. Because when the time finally came to confront Matt Clark, the situation would demand more than caution or hesitation. It would require strategy, courage, and a willingness to face the darkest parts of their pasts.